All right. Okay. So today is November 18th, 2021. We have a big group today. This is SCD community meeting. On the agenda, currently we have two things. Let's start with the first item, Vivek.
Hey, would you, sorry.
I will pull out your design doc to share if that's what you want to share.
Okay, actually, I just have a small presentation, so I was wondering if I could present on the meeting.
Yeah, sure. How, we only have two items. So go ahead. Do you want to take over the sharing?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just give me a second. I think it's doing it.
Yeah, just a little background for the people who didn't know this topic. I think Vivek presented this in May, back in May, right? I wasn't actually in that meeting. I took a quick look at the recording. Thank you for putting it in the doc. So he proposed that topic in May, and then Sam suggested he should present to Kubernetes API machinery as well. I see that you have issues in Kubernetes, in SCD, you have a CAP. Not much attention there. It was closed by the bot. I was trying to see if you want to reopen it again, but that's the background. So now Vivek is coming back with the update. Go ahead.
So can you see the presentation screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I'll just start from the very beginning. So this is a namespace code. The essential idea is here is to just present like a way to isolate some storage. So in the sense, like if multiple customers or multiple tenants are using the same SCD cluster, each one has their own dedicated storage, so that one doesn't step over the boundaries of the other. So that's what I mean by storage isolation. So that's one of the problems that the namespace code is trying to solve. The second one is tracking usage and accountability. Tracking usage just means if a key has maybe 50 subkeys in it or 100 bytes of one big key, we should be able to kind of account for storage. So anyone can at any point in time say like, hey, this subkey has so many bytes under it or so many keys under it, and so on and so forth. So that's one of the other issues that is solving, and it's just feature parity with Zookeeper. Zookeeper already has something similar. So it had something similar from the get-go. Like they had something like this. It wasn't just enforced. In 3.7, they brought in the enforcement. They built a lot of stuff around it, and that's what we're trying to get at. So it is bringing HCD up to speed with Zookeeper in terms of like feature parity. So what does this framework really do, or how does this really work? So one is to track quotas, like as I said before, it uses, I mean, you can track byte usages or key count. So for a specific key, if you say like, hey, how much is Kubernetes really using? You can kind of figure out like, I just want to know the byte usage or the key counts under it. So that is one thing that really does. The framework provides this. You can check at any point in time and give you the latest value for whatever you're looking for. Setting, getting, deleting quotas. And if you have like admin access, you can do this as well. So if you don't have auth enabled, that's fine. If you have auth enabled, then only admins can set, delete, and update quotas and stuff like that. So we have some isolation in terms of like what an admin can do and what the generic user can do. So we have that kind of stuff if you're maintaining the cluster. We've used Tritrees to store quotas in general, so that it's easier to set quotas on any key that you feel. I think it's a fast enough structure, as we've seen in the benchmarks. Like it doesn't affect the retrieval, or it doesn't affect the core HCD operations if you put the request in line. So it's a pretty efficient storage structure. I think it solves the problem for what we're looking for. So the framework also allows for recovery and creation of quotas. So the cluster goes down, it comes back up. This framework handles like how to recover from the quotas that were already there, so that you don't miss out on any data that you've lost while the cluster went down. Enforcement of the quotas. So, I mean, not everyone is comfortable just like, oh, hey, I'm going to roll out quotas completely and be fine with it. So there's three options. You can completely disable it. You can have a soft mode where you can see how much data is being used. You can see the metrics. You can see all in all ways like how quotas is affecting or how quotas is being used or how it's affecting the latency of requests and stuff like that. So this is there as well. And then the hard mode is the one where you'd be like, okay, I'm going all out and I'm going to enable this, and it's going to deny requests if it is over the quota. And then just handling interaction with core etcd operations. So this is kind of like what affects core etcd operations. Something like a put request. When a put request comes in, what happens is it's going to check for like, hey, is there enough space for this key to be put in wherever they're trying to put in? And if it is, well, that's great. But if it's not, then it'll immediately reject if you're in hard mode and stuff like that. So even when it's updating, so if you made a put and you just have to update the quota because, yeah, the request can go in, but it still takes time to update the quota. So it handles all these interactions with the core etcd operations. There's delete as well, which is again another core etcd operation that quotas will kind of be part of. So we've run benchmarks on this, and we've tried to do different kinds of tests, and I think there's no significant impact on the core etcd operations that we were just speaking of. If you look at the pull request, there's just numbers like without quotas, it would be about 63.6 seconds for the benchmark tool that we have, and it's the same for our quotas. So just for an individual request, like one single request is about 0.05 to 7 milliseconds slower on an average, and that's I'm saying on the worst case. So it isn't really affecting the latency of the request that much. It's the same for delete. If you look at numbers, like it's just very, very close. There's hardly any difference that makes. So yeah, I've mentioned the gist where I've put all the benchmarks that I've ran with and without quotas. So that's available as well. And then just, so we have a technical doc and a GitHub PR for this. So the technical doc is just explaining like how the internals of the quotas is, how everything is managed. And we definitely like the community's feedback on this, like, hey, what can we improve? What have we missed? Or anything along those lines. And then there's a PR of the technical doc itself. So we've kind of aligned the request so that it kind of complies with the technical doc. So any changes in the technical doc will reflect in the PR eventually. So yeah, just so this is what namespace quotas is. And I think that's pretty much it. So just if anyone has any questions.
Thank you. I put a slide line in the doc. If you have time, you can put the link over there.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. I'll do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So anyone have any questions? And in the community meeting doc, there are links to the etcd issue, Kubernetes issue, CAP, the PR. If not right now, I guess people probably need some time to look into the details. Yeah, but I see that you have a lot of, you made a lot of effort and didn't get enough attention apparently. Yeah, I'll start to see like who I could sign to each of the things. Thank you very much. That was a great presentation.
So I wanted to say that it looks like very impressive work, and thank you for this. I remember looking at this like half a year ago, and haven't refreshed yet what's inside. My thinking is mostly like between two top-level approach, the one that you're presenting, and potentially the other that it's like not that integrated into etcd, but more provides primitives in etcd that can express similar model, but the whole decision how to perform the validation accounting is handled in some client library. So it would put requirement for the customers to use either proxy or consistent client library, and anyone that would connect by passing the client library would be able to ignore the quotas or limits, but the primitives that would be required in etcd would be transactional incrementing of value for particular key. So every time every time someone sends a transaction that grows some field by additional number of bytes, it increments some counter. Basically, key value becomes a counter, and to prevent incrementing the counters above some value, or decrementing if the counter is actually quota, a precondition within a transaction that says we don't want the value to drop below 0, and refuse the transaction if it would cause exceeding some numerical value that it's part of the precondition. So this is way more like assembler approach, probably less risk for etcd, but also not that powerful machinery, easy for use for this particular use case.
Sorry, may I add one note? I work with Vivek. I reviewed some of the stuff. So with your approach, it will be, I think, impossible to do counters for like a hierarchy of keys. So if you have a certain prefix, and then you're trying to track, the counter for it, that will be a little more difficult because somebody needs to preset that counter. I guess you mean that the client will be responsible for saying, hey, I want to track this, and etcd will start tracking? Or do you mean more of like, we track this value for every
Piotr, I think you're muted.
Yeah. So my mental model is that like client library would need to define like two kinds of spaces. If the client library wants to track names,
okay.
In the namespace approach, that would be a configuration section within etcd itself saying which namespaces are tracked. And also there would be a special section like meta section maintained by the client library that contains these are the counters for these prefixes, the current counters. And every time the transaction contains some edits on key values, the incremental differences are atomically applied together with the transaction. The technical challenge here is if the write being done, if it's an edit of already existing value override, but it's the blind override. So the client library does not know what was the previous value, so what's the difference in length. Because this either would require client-side lookup for the value to not make it a blind write, or it would require somehow being able to express the difference between two values on client side, and then it starts to be complicated. So So my model is difficult from the blind rights perspective.
I see. Okay, we can discuss more in the doc if that's probably easier.
Okay, thank you. I'm not saying like that what I'm proposing is better, but I think one of the approach to move forward is make an hour decision between these two approaches.
Yep.
Thank
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we can bring the further discussion to the doc or PRs. All right, so the next item, Nate, please.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to give an update on the LFX docs etcd menteeship. It's a mouthful. I think this is going to be the last community meeting before it ends. It actually ends on November 30th. So I've dropped in a link to the milestones on the website. Just to see, just so I wanted to share what has been being done and what we're likely to do in the next couple of weeks here before it ends. We've done a lot of changes, converting the demos into an install, or rather a tutorials section on the website. And I've still got to go through and open up some issues saying, hey, these are stubs. And we can, people can help out by expanding them, kind of the Wikipedia style, ask, call out for help. And then the last couple of things I think that we're going to be working on before the end of the internship is the issue 509, which is revise and expand the installation docs. And we're going to take a look at issue 505, which is upgrading the authentication and RBAC pages. They are currently a little bit confusing, so we're hoping to clean that up a little bit here before we finish this up. So if you've got any questions, or if you've got any issues that you think would be a good issue for Somashri to take a look at before she's done, we're happy for suggestions and comments.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you for all this work. It's amazing. Thank you. All right. So that's the two items we have on our agenda. Is there anything else from the audience that you want to discuss today? All right. Otherwise, it's going to be Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And we will have one last meeting in December this year. I will see you guys next month. Thank you very much. Bye.
Take care, everyone.